Hey, it is Kenny from Kenny's Audiophile Record Reviews. Thank you very much for viewing my channel. Please like and subscribe. I sincerely appreciate that. In this video, we're going to get down to what I think is the greatest jazz fusion record of all time, album of all time, I should say. I did a top 10 jazz fusion records video in 2023, I believe it was. And I revealed it in that video, but I like to give it a little bit more attention in its separate own video. I think it deserves that in a separate own video, and get responses from the audience. You can leave what you think is the greatest jazz fusion record of all time. And these things we got to keep in mind are just our personal opinions. We all vibe and group to different types of music in different types of ways. Music hits us in different ways. So it's going to vary from person to person. There's no right or wrong answer. But this is mine in this video. And that is Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, this 1970 masterpiece. The vision of Miles Davis, this electronic music, this jazz music record, this fusion record by brother Miles Davis. This is a mobile fidelity version of the record. I purchased this sealed at a swap meet for $10 a few years back. Although it has some seam splits on top, I'm cool with that. For $10, I shouldn't be complaining. This record sounds awesome, this version of the record that I have. But I'm going to get into why I think it's the greatest jazz fusion record of all time, and its influence on the musical world, the music community, and the musicians who played on this record. And I'm going to get into the musicians who played on the record, I guess, right now. And then we're going to start with Miles Davis, obviously, on trumpet. And this was, I think, he was during Miles Davis' creative peak in terms of my opinion, in terms of he was still in that window in terms of the way he can blow, the way he can play the trumpet, his vision, his creative spark, and just his overall creativity. I mean, masterpieces like this start up here first, and he had that vision. Miles Davis did. He was just a master extraordinaire. Miles Davis on trumpet, and on bass, and on Wayne Shorter is on soprano saxophone. The master Wayne Shorter, who had been playing for Miles Davis for years up to that point, or at least a few years. Wayne Shorter, soprano saxophone. Benny Maupin was on bass clarinet. He's a very underrated jazz musician. He was on this record, Herbie Hancock's masterpiece, Headhunters. I mean, it's cool to be part of, say you were part of Headhunters and Bitches Brew. What a resume that is. Benny Maupin, bass clarinet. Then you have the amazing Joe Zawinul, who played for Cannonball Adderley for years. Joe Zawinul on electric piano, Chick Corea on electric piano as well. Dave Holland on bass, Dave Holland, the great bass player. John McLaughlin, the magnificent electric guitar player, doesn't get his props in terms of being one of the best electric guitar players of all time. John McLaughlin on electric guitar. Harvey Brooks on electric bass. Lenny White on drums, one drum set. Jack DeJohnette on another drum set. Billy Cobham, I think he appears on at least one track on another drum set. And Don Alias, please forgive me for mispronouncing his name, but he played congas and drums. But you have all these musicians, and like I said, and including the vision of Miles Davis. It was like, it was a giant jam session. That's what it was, under the orchestration and under the direction of the great mind of Miles Davis. I want to read you a certain portion from this book, Miles Davis, the autobiography. This is perhaps the greatest book I've ever read in my life. I mean, because I love Miles Davis and music so much. But I just want to read you this real quick. And he said, and I quote, "What we did on Bitches Brew, you couldn't ever write down for an orchestra to play. That's why I didn't write it all out. Not because I didn't know what I wanted. I knew what I wanted would come out of a process that is not prearranged shit." That's a quote from Miles Davis. This was about improvisation, and that's what makes jazz so fabulous. That's a quote from Miles Davis from this great book. Like I said, it's perhaps, I think it's my favorite book I've ever read in my life. The Miles Davis autobiography. I think it's a must read if you're a fan of Miles Davis. But the way Miles Davis effectively and delicately and intelligently and masterfully integrates jazz. You know, you have jazz players like Wayne Shorter on soprano sax, and Miles Davis on trumpet, and Benny Maupin on bass clarinet, and then you have these electric influences of Chick Corea on electric piano, Joe Zawinul on electric piano, and these dramatic and dynamic drum sets of Jack DeJohnette, Lenny White. I think Billy Cobham is on one track, and you infuse those together to make this fabulous set is absolutely amazing in my mind. And for these tracks to sound as organized and so well arranged and well put together, I assume it's a lot had to do with Miles Davis's direction, his conducting, and also some tape edits as well. It's just an amazing masterpiece, an amazing work of musical art. His like on the song "Bitches Brew," that echoing trumpet that I think occurs at the beginning of the song, somewhere at the middle, and maybe at the end, is amazing. Touch and amazing effect for a song of that time, and just how you have the hard rock playing of John McLaughlin and the strong trumpet player playing Miles Davis, and you have these dramatic drum sets all just hitting you at one time in this fabulous soundstage that this album creates, by the way. It's just a joy to listen to. And all of the vibes and grooves of this album, I think it makes it easy for someone who's listening to quote-unquote jazz for the first time. I think it makes it the transition of somebody listening to pop or rock music to move over to jazz or jazz fusion. I think it makes the transition easy because there's elements in this record that they're used to hearing, already. If I'm going to introduce somebody to jazz, I'll probably do it through jazz fusion first. I'm not going to do it through a record like this. They may not be ready for that. So I hit them up with something like this, and it makes it easier for them to vibe and groove to and understand. And then I think I would transition to other, Miles Davis albums. I easily transition into those, like In a Silent Way, Miles in the Sky, or something like that. And also the Jack Johnson sessions. The Jack Johnson album is another jazz fusion album. Some of you out there prefer the Jack Johnson album over this one. I take this one over the Jack Johnson album, but it's close. The Jack Johnson album is actually an amazing album. I definitely would choose Jack Johnson and Bitches Brew over In a Silent Way. In a Silent Way is an amazing album, but it's kind of like a little bit more subdued and mellow, and it doesn't have the rock influence of Bitches Brew or Jack Johnson. Although this is an amazing album, this one is. But I would choose Bitches Brew for sure over In a Silent Way. They're both, In a Silent Way had this, like I said, it has this mellow, laid back groove. And Bitches Brew is more of like a hard hit that rock musicians and fans of rock can get into and groove to and understand and enjoy quicker than In a Silent Way. But like I said, they're both fabulous. But the influence Miles Davis had on the musicians in the band, that can't be ignored. And I'll give you some examples. John McLaughlin, an amazing guitar player, one of the founding members of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. You cannot say that the influence of Miles Davis his time with Miles Davis did not influence him. And the same, excuse me, the same with Brother Chick Corea. This amazing piano player, amazing keyboard player, went on to be one of the founding members of Chick Corea and returned to forever. And he made his own masterpiece not too long after Bitches Boot, Chick Corea, and returned to forever. Joe Zawinul was already playing with Cannonball Adderley, and I believe he was a composer of the smash hit song Mercy, 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 the instrumental hit. And the Buckinghams, I think a group out of Chicago, Illinois, went on to make an amazing vocal version of Mercy, Mercy, Mercy. But Joe Zawinul, just an amazing keyboard player and a great piano player before he got into the keyboard scene. He was one of the founding members of Weather Report that included Wayne Shorter. Billy Cobham, I think he's on one track on this album. I think he is. He busted out with this amazing Spectrum album. You can't tell me that these musicians and were not affected by Miles Davis. Thus, they created those masterpieces, and it made a greater, more broader net or influence on the music community, and it gave the fans of these albums, these musicians, a greater musical scope to enjoy and love and vibe to. I think the Miles Davis influence is greater than people actually realize. Airto Moreira was on that album as well. I think it may be on one track, but I think he's considered one of Brazil's greatest percussionists. Some might consider him the greatest Brazilian percussionist of all time. He was on that album, I believe, on one track. But like I said, some of you prefer the more softer, In a Silent Way, or Miles in the Sky. There's some of his other great albums. I think George Benson is on this one. I'm not sure. Maybe not. I think George Benson is on one of these earlier Miles Davis albums. But Herbie Hancock's playing electric piano on this one. So this album, like I said, it makes people, the transition between getting into pop, rock, into jazz. I would start with this one. This one is beautifully edited. It's beautifully arranged. It's just, to me, it doesn't have a fatigue factor. It's just a joy to listen to. I honestly think this is the greatest jazz fusion record ever made. And like I said, it makes the transition into jazz much easier. I think when you try and get people into other genres, I think you have to do it in baby steps. You can't do it like, listen to, let me let you listen to this. No, I think you have to build up to that. Regardless of the genre. Even classical music. If I was getting people into classical music, I say, listen to this. Listen to Witch's Brew, where the compositions are easy for people from other genres to groove through, and vibe to and understand. You don't want to hit them up with some of this hardcore classical stuff. This album is very easy to get into, even if you don't like classical music. So I would start with this with classical music, and I would start with Bitches Brew with jazz fusion music. This is the greatest jazz fusion music album of all time, in my opinion. Some of the, the mix of the hard electric rock guitar of John McLaughlin, and the fabulous trumpet player of playing a Miles Davis. Sometimes he'll bring the sound down, Miles Davis on trumpet, and bring the whole band down to some slow, mellow groove. And then you have John McLaughlin's electric guitar just bring it back up again to something amazing and fabulous. And then you have these drum sets. You might have a drum set in one speaker and a drum set in another speaker. And his vision to use multiple drum sets and multiple electrical pianos on a jazz album during that time, or a jazz fusion album, was light years. He was light years ahead of his time. Miles Davis was. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a masterpiece, straight up. Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. The best sounding, the best performed jazz fusion record to my ears of all time. Please leave your comments in the comment section below on your favorite jazz fusion record of all time. Please like and subscribe. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much for viewing my video. God bless. Strong love. Keep on enjoying the music. Keep the peace worldwide.